We're celebrating aviation with the Flight Path Museum LAX as we take you on a docent-led virtual tour of this hidden gem located on the south side of the airfield at LAX. We're joined today by the board president of the museum, Agnes Huff, and her amazing board members who are serving as museum docents for you today. Without further ado, I'm going to pass it over to Agnes.
Welcome to Flight Path Museum and Learning Center. Celebrating 25 years, our museum is dedicated to the preservation of the history of commercial aviation and aerospace in all of Southern California. Our educational mission includes our very popular Learn to Fly Flight Path Flyers program and student scholarships that enable youth to pursue careers in our industry. I'm Agnes Huff and I serve as board president. My career began in the air as a stewardess, flying for Pacific Southwest Airlines. I am wearing my original PSA uniform today. We had hot pants, red go-go boots, and bowler hats. In the late 70s, passengers could actually smoke on board the airplane. Overhead compartments were open, so during turbulence, luggage could fly out. And we only served coffee, tea, or Tang. Years later, we finally added little bags of peanuts. Now, for the past 25 years, I own my PR and consulting firm. And yes, I'm still very much involved in aviation. Today's virtual tour is made possible by our partners at Los Angeles World Airports and LA Tourism. And for that, we're very, very grateful and excited to be here. I have an amazing team of board members who are serving today as museum docents. Let me start with Robert Ackerman, a lifelong commercial aviation enthusiast, Westchester native and a UCLA graduate. He spent 3 decades in the aerospace industry and was involved in the startup of DirecTV and Connection by Boeing. His family established the Anton Ackerman Scholarship after his father passed away last year. Robert is an aviation historian and now working on a book on the history of the Imperial Terminal. Next up is Carly Allen, an LA native with a passion for aviation and travel. She's our marketing chair, making it her mission to bring the museum to the masses. Carly is also executive vice president and associate publisher of Global Traveler magazine. She's been lucky enough to board the most modern aircraft in the world. Steve Sukup, actually I should say Colonel Steve Sukup, is the designer and curator of our space gallery. He spent over 45 years in the space business, 28 in the US Air Force, and about 17 years as a principal director at the Aerospace Corporation. And last but certainly not least is J.C. Dick. We kind of abbreviate his name, Jean-Christophe Dick, but he's an airport planner, a photographer extraordinaire, and a pilot. His first project was to help plan the LAX Bradley West expansion, and since then he's worked on lots of other projects at LAX, major airports across the United States and abroad. His passion for photography has been recognized twice by the Museum of Flight in Seattle with first place awards. It's my pleasure to turn over the microphone to JC.
Thanks, Agnes. So this is the entrance of the museum, and as you walk into the museum, straight ahead, you'll see the origins of aviation. And one of the first cases that you will see is a case that commemorates the first flight in Kitty Hawk by the Wright brothers in December 1903. The little model aircraft that you see there is the Wright Flyer, that first airplane that flew on December 17th. And so there's a little bit of memorabilia from that era that shows the beginnings of aviation. But one of the missions of also Flight Path is to also demonstrate the history of LAX. And LAX started more or less its history in 1928. What happened was there was a barley field where LAX currently is. It was a barley field that was owned by the Bennett brothers. And some businessmen, including Mr. Mines, who was a realtor, thought it would be a good idea to have an airport there. So in 1928, they created an airport, and it was selected for the National Air Races. The National Air Races was a big event back in the day, and instead of going to see NASCAR, people would see airplanes zooming around and racing that way. It was quite a thing, and unfortunately we don't have it that much today. And later that year in September, Los Angeles selected that area to be an airport. They leased the 640 acres to make the first airport in Los Angeles proper. Further that, and during the 1930s, the airport continued to develop. And then in the 1940s, World War II occurred. So the timeline continues. And World War II basically changed the airport and all the airports in Southern California from a peacetime airport to a wartime airport. So a lot of construction of aircraft was occurring in Southern California. Over 300,000 airplanes were built in the United States during World War II. And at the end of World War II, about 60% of the aviation sector in the United States was based in Southern California. So after the war, it was time to revert back to civilian use. And LAX really, that's when it really grew and came into its own. In 1946, there was a master plan that was put into effect, and 5 of the major airlines that were operating at Burbank, which was, funny enough, the biggest airport at the time, moved over to LAX. At the same time, there was a lot of construction going on. In 1951, the Sepulveda Tunnel was built. It was the first tunnel that was going under an airfield because the runways needed to grow. The original airport was a lot smaller, that original Mines Field. It was located between Century on the north, Imperial on the south, Sepulveda on the west, and then Aviation on the east. So it started to grow to the westward and then northward. And so that's the airport that we come to know today. In 1959, the first jet flight arrived at LAX from New York. It was an American Airlines Boeing 707. And the central terminal area that we now know today, with all the terminals that we fly out of, terminals 1 through 7, and Tom Bradley, the original terminal, the original terminals were built in were opened in 1961 and inaugurated by then Vice President Lyndon Baines Johnson. In the 1970s, growth continued. It was deregulation, and so the amount of passengers that were flying was increasing, but also the size of the aircraft were increasing. Such aircraft such as the Lockheed L-1011 TriStar and the Douglas DC-10 were built in Southern California, just a few miles away. The Lockheed aircraft was built in Palmdale, and the DC-10 was built in Long Beach. But also the 747, which was the biggest of them all, some major components were built a few miles to the east in Hawthorne. The 1980s brought along another period of growth. The 1984 Olympics really needed more facilities to be able to handle the influx of passengers. So Tom Bradley International Terminal was inaugurated just in time for the Olympics. And also the second level roadway was then built to be able to handle departures and arrivals. So when you go and drop somebody off at LAX today, that on the upper level, that was built for the 1984 Olympics. So today, construction continues and has been continually since to be able to meet passenger demand when people come back and fly, so that LAX can continue to be the gateway to Los Angeles as well as LA's gateway to the world. We're now going to go out and look at the DC-3, which is outside. So outside of the museum, we have a Douglas DC-3. It's one of our most iconic and popular exhibits. And it sits here. And the DC-3 itself is an iconic aircraft because over 16,000 have been built since its first flight in 1935. And in 2013, there was an estimated 2,000 still flying. So you're talking about an airplane well into its 70s and 80s in terms of age, and it's still flying today. This particular DC-3 was built in Santa Monica in 1941 and flew with TWA for about 9 years. And in 1950, it was transferred over to Union Oil, which is now part of Chevron, and then refitted with an executive VIP interior. And that interior, which we'll see, was how basically executives were ferried between North and South America, or different employees for their operations, all the way until 1982. In 1982, the aircraft retired, and 47,000 hours of flight hours. It accumulated 47,000 hours of flight hours without a single incident, and has been retired here since. And it's actually a property of the California Science Center, which has graciously loaned it to us, but we continue to show it off to all the people that want to come and see it. So this is the interior that Bill is going through. And I'm going to hand it back to Robert, who's going to walk us through the main gallery.
Thank you, JC. And welcome to the main gallery. The main gallery features many historic aircraft models as we see in front of us. Beneath the red biplane is a model of Howard Hughes's giant H-4 Hercules, widely known as the Spruce Goose. The Spruce Goose was just built 2 miles north of LAX in what is now Playa Vista. To the left of the models are some of the newest aircraft operating at LAX, such as the 2-engine Boeing 787 Dreamliner and the 4-engine Airbus A380, currently the world's largest passenger airplane. LAX is the top A380 airport in the United States. If we pan a little bit to the left, please. This American Airways tri-motor airplane model is here in the center of our gallery, and it was donated to us by the movie industry. We also have several display cases for the Big Five airlines that moved from Burbank to LAX in 1946. The Big Five airlines were American, United, Western, TWA, and Pan Am. Inside these displays, if we can get maybe a little close up, please. Oh, there we go. Inside these displays are aircraft models, timetables and tickets, plates and glasses, and a smiling stewardess standing nearby. If we can turn to the right, please. Perfect. The main gallery has the best view of the South LA airfield. We have binoculars, plane spotting guides, a radio tuned to hear the air traffic control and pilot communications, as well as a touchscreen display that shows airline departures and arrivals. When docents have time, they can take small groups into the fenced area for a better view of the airfield. We are one of the few airport museums on the tarmac at a major world airport. We're now going to proceed on to the Flying Tigers room. Inside this room, there are many historical models and artifacts of the Flying Tigers cargo airline, which had been founded at LAX in 1945. Flying Tigers was America's first scheduled all-cargo airline. The Flying Tigers name comes from American pilots who had volunteered to help the Chinese fight the Japanese during World War II. Flying Tigers was acquired by Federal Express in 1988. We thank the Flying Tigers Retirement Club for the sponsorship of this exhibit. We'll now proceed on to our Celebrity Hall. To the left is a display for Japan Airlines. JAL was one of the first Asian carriers to serve LAX. In addition to the flight attendant uniforms on display, we have samurai uniform armor donated by Japan Airlines to LAX. To the right is the William Schoenberger Research Library. Bill was a famous aviation writer and a long-term board member of the Flight Path Museum. Our library contains an extensive collection of books, magazines, videos, technical manuals, and airport planning documents. Areas of special focus include airlines, aircraft manufacturers, aviation pioneers, and of course, Los Angeles International Airport. We have material here that is unavailable anywhere else in the world, and the library's resources are available for researchers to use on site at no charge. Now, as we proceed down the hallway, we'll come to glamour and entertainment. We're seeing some of the many famous people who have traveled through LAX. On the very left corner, upper corner of the screen is Billy Crystal with Norman the Cow in the movie City Slickers. Did you know that LAX is the most filmed airport in the world? We also see other celebrities who have visited LAX, such as Pat Boone, Lucille Ball, Cary Grant, Audrey Hepburn, Nat King Cole, and Richard Nixon. You'll see the photos here are outside with aircraft stairs, and the people in the photos pose for the photographer. It's quite a contrast from today, with celebrities using the private suite or private jets to avoid the paparazzi. This collection reflects a more genteel time during the golden age of aviation, when people dressed up to fly and the whole family would see off their loved one at the airport. Some of those happy memories happened right here when the museum was the Imperial Terminal, for the charter airlines during the 1960s and the 1970s. And now we'll hand it off to Carly.
Thanks, Robert. As we head into the LAX room, guests should know the Flight Path Museum has the largest collection of commercial aviation flight attendant and pilot uniform in the country, with over 600 pieces from 67 different airlines. Many of the airlines are no longer in business, making our collection all the more rare. TWA, or Trans World Airlines, existed from 1930 until 2001. It was championed by the famous Howard Hughes. Our TWA exhibit extended beyond what you see here today, offering a great collection of both flight attendant uniforms, accessories, promotional posters from the 60s, 70s, and 80s, along with aircraft models. TWA commissioned world-famous designers including Balmain, Cassini, Valentino, and Ralph Lauren to design their flight attendant uniforms. The 1944 uniforms in the LAX room were also inspired by Dior. And along the back wall, as we showcase an extensive collection of uniforms as well, our guests are always fascinated by TWA's 4 paper dresses that are on display. However, the eye-catching paper uniform era was short-lived, lasting only about 8 months, since it provided to be pretty impractical, requiring the flight attendant uniforms to be flame retardant and too expensive as the dresses need to be changed daily. One of the most famous designers was Emilio Pucci, with his vivid and colorful ensembles that were signature design for Braniff International Airlines. Pucci's designs are some of the most memorable and valuable uniforms that we have in our collection today. The Harlequin print dress and tights have a pre-Columbian art motif and display Central American instruments, as Braniff primarily flew to South America. A hot pink navy blue reversible coat is also on display, which shows one of the many multi-layered uniform pieces, part of the in-flight quick change combinations for the flight attendants to wear. Braniff truly helped to make the stewardess the rock star of the 60s and the 70s. Then heading towards Pan Am. Pan Am was the largest international air carrier and unofficial flag carrier of the United States from 1927 until its demise in 1991. The blue globe logo is widely known in pop culture and nicknamed the Blue Meatball. Our original Pan Am logo on display is a popular selfie spot. Pan Am's famous uniform designers included Edith Head, Adolfo and Don Loper of Beverly Hills, which are also on display. Inside our glass cases, you will also find priceless Pan Am memorabilia, including fine china, scaled aircraft models, and in-flight amenities through the ages. We are now approaching our Mexicana Airlines display. Mexicana was the first international carrier to fly into LAX and was a mainstay until it ceased operations in 2010, completing 98 years of service. You can see promotional posters highlighting exotic destinations, along with artifacts, playing cards, pins, and also mugs as well. Flight attendants were known for their style, and that includes accessories. Our collection features totes, purses from a variety of global airlines, including TWA, Pan Am, Western Airlines, and more. Our Pacific Southwest Airlines, or PSA exhibit, gives our guests a special treat. Think the 70s and bright colors. And we do have a special photo for you for that. Headquartered in San Diego, PSA eventually expanded beyond California and served the West Coast from 1949 to 1988. PSA called itself the world's friendliest airline and painted a smile on the nose of its airplanes, calling it the PSA Grinning Birds, and was the unofficial flag carrier for California. In the 1960s, a PSA stewardess wore brightly colored uniforms with mini skirts. In the 1970s, it was hot pants with strawberry colored boots. Our collection includes this famous uniform, complete with all the accessories. There's much more for you to discover here, but for now, let's take you to space. Steve?
Well, thanks, Carly. There we go. Well, the Space Gallery is the newest gallery in the museum. It opened about 3.5 years ago to support the space part of our Aerospace Heritage Preservation Charter. The gallery was designed to provide a colorful, immersive, and ever-changing experience for our guests, depicting and conveying the wonders of space and the excitement of space exploration. To set the tone for this experience, at the entrance of the gallery appear the words of Russian space pioneer Konstantin Tsiolkovsky, who in 1911 foretold the coming age of space exploration when he wrote that Earth is the cradle of humanity, but one cannot live in the cradle forever. Our tour of the gallery traces a journey that began long ago and will continue far into the future. Our journey begins Our journey begins with an overview of our place in space, our solar system and its planets, the Kuiper belt that surrounds us, and the Oort cloud at the very edge of our current reach. It then moves on to highlight the amazing work done by pioneers who established the theoretical and scientific bases for spaceflight, begun in China over 4,000 years ago, carried forward into Persia around 1,000 years ago, codified by geniuses such as Galileo, Kepler, and Newton several hundred years ago, and turned into practical reality by space flight pioneers like Tsiolkovsky, Goddard, von Braun, and many others. The journey then takes us to the next major display, which presents highlights of the many spaceflight and space exploration achievements of all nations, beginning with the Russian-American space race of the 1950s and continuing to the present. The display contains over 50 individual graphics describing significant space exploration achievements. The continuously playing video provides colorful and exciting details of many of the achievements highlighted in the graphics. The journey then turns to America's Apollo lunar landing program with a new display entitled Apollo at 50. Now, 5 decades after the Apollo era, each of the manned Apollo missions is portrayed in a colorful wall plaque that describes the mission's goals, challenges, highlights, and achievements. Another fascinating video recaps the history of the Apollo program and each of the Apollo missions. We even have on display a small piece of the silver insulation that covered the Apollo 11 command module during its historic trip to the moon in July of 1969. The last major display, and our newest, is dedicated to the mighty Saturn rockets that propelled our astronauts into Earth orbit and onto the moon. Saturn also launched Skylab, America's first space station, and its crews into Earth orbit, and also boosted the US part of our first cooperative mission with the Russians, Apollo-Soyuz, in 1975. In addition to the major displays that trace our journey, we have numerous space history artifacts for our guests to enjoy. In this display case, circled in yellow, are 2 actual miniature space satellites called picosats. These were built as backups to another pair that were flown successfully before these were donated to the museum. Below circled in red are original telex messages dispatched by NASA from Cape Canaveral in February 1962, describing the progress of John Glenn's Earth orbiting mission as it was occurring. In the center of the gallery stands a blue NASA flight suit used by NASA astronaut and Air Force General Kevin Chilton while he prepared for his 3rd space shuttle mission as commander of mission STS-76. General Chilton is now a member of the Flight Path Museum Advisory Board and an active contributor and valued benefactor of the museum. We're also very pleased that a new sponsor, Aztecs Communications, has donated a 4-foot-long, highly detailed model of the Space Shuttle Orbiter Atlantis, which we'll put on display next to General Chilton's flight suit. This is most appropriate because General Chilton piloted Atlantis during his last mission, STS-76. Finally, as our guests finish their journey and prepare to leave the gallery, they're reminded of humankind's next great space step into the cosmos with this amazing observation from NASA that the first humans to step on Mars are alive today. Thank you, and back to you, Agnes.
Thank you, Steve. That is quite a journey, I will admit, and you've done an amazing job curating that space gallery, and I know that there's a lot more to come. There's a lot more to this museum than what we've been able to show you today. This is just the highlights, and we hope that you've enjoyed your virtual experience of the world of commercial aviation and aerospace, and we hope that you are eager to discover it for yourselves when the time is right and we are back open again. All of us, our board, our volunteers, everyone that's involved are all committed to enhancing our visitor experience. We've got new things. For example, we just acquired an original Douglas DC-7 air stairs that's located right next to our DC-3 aircraft. And the view is amazing, and it's just the perfect place for a selfie spot. We also have expanded and created a new Take 5 patio lounge. It offers not only an opportunity to sit under umbrellas and relax, children's activities will take place there, and we'll even be offering snacks. All throughout the year, we curate contemporary and temporary exhibits, and we have amazingly enhanced our duty-free gift shop. And I know that you may not know this, but the museum is actually available for rental for private functions and special events. We can host anyone anywhere from 5 to 305 people. And where else can you enjoy a unique setting, a spectacular runway view, and an experience not available anywhere else, only at Flight Path? We also have a brand new website, thanks in large part to JC, who's helped create it, along with a new logo. And here you can learn about membership, volunteering, we always need more volunteers, and also our limited edition face masks, our LAX Stay Safe face masks that we are selling while the museum is closed. Every purchase supports our museum during the closure. To our partner LAWA and the many dedicated volunteers, donors, members, all our global and local visitors, and special community and industry organizations, we say a heartfelt thank you. Thank you for helping us share what is the hidden gem in Los Angeles at LAX Airport. So now, from the runway to the moon, the exciting journey through the history of aviation and aerospace is right here at Flight Path. The only thing missing now is you. But fasten your seatbelts. We'll be ready for takeoff as soon as we get clearance from our mayor and the LAX tower. Thank you for being here today. We hope to see you soon in person